Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
Cowboys with the big W. Walk-off. How about that? Dak Prescott and the Cowboys score 30 points in the second half. He made throws 15, 20-plus yards down the field throughout the second half. All over the field, by the way.
9.8 yard per attempt average. It would lead the league from last year if that was a season-long average.
No doubt. In the NFL, that's a big number.
Jared Goff beat the Cowboys with a 2.6 yard per attempt average.
Did he really?
Yeah, just to embarrass Cowboys fans a little bit.
Oh, my goodness
Bring
gracious.
us down a little bit to reality.
Wow. Dak Prescott, 450 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 30 points in the second half. And did CeeDee Lamb have a coming-out party?
He led the team, 106 yards in the air. I thought he played really well.
What about this Dalton Schultz guy? Are you buying that, or what's going on?
First career touchdown for the Cowboys. He's not obviously had a lot of playing time with Witten and Jarwin ahead of him. He is more in line with a Witten style than Jarwin. Jarwin was more of the Kelsey Kittle athlete was receiver.
Right.
Schultz is more of a traditional tight end, but, I mean, he's athletic. He can make catches, and Dak loves the tight end. So I think Schultz could have a good year. I think Jarwin would have had a bigger year because of his athleticism, but doesn't mean Dalton Schultz can't be successful.
Okay.
Dak's going to hit the tight end.
9 catches, 88 yards. Of course, Cooper, two receivers over 100 yards. Cooper had 100. CeeDee Lamb had 106. And we mentioned some of, 2 of Michael Gallup's. I mean, good grief with what Gallup did. Even though he had 2 catches, they were huge. And the 38-yarder was a monster. Cowboys win, and now they're 1-1, and now they get to go to Seattle this weekend and play the, I think that he's the MVP after 2 weeks. And I know Aaron Rodgers is playing great football too, but Russell Wilson is absolutely amazing. But the Cowboys got it done, and they win 40-39 by scoring 30 points in the second half against the Atlanta Falcons. We are live in the Bank Plus studio. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app, and you're listening to the Out of Bounds show on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Go local, go with the home team, and go with your Farm Bureau Insurance agent in any of the 82 counties in Mississippi. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. We're live in the Bank Plus studio, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We want to welcome in David Helman, DallasCowboys.com, obviously Cowboys insider after Dak and the crew with a monster comeback and huge win because you can't start off 0-2 knowing that you got to go play the Seahawks this weekend. David, good morning. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Well, hey, thanks for jumping up early and jumping on the show. This is definitely Dak Prescott country. And so walk us through what you were thinking. What was the chatter like? What were you thinking when it was 20-0 Falcons yesterday?
To be very honest, I mean, I was stunned at how pitiful it was. And I mean, you know, you go down sometimes by multiple scores in the NFL, right? Like going down by 20 points is something that happens to everybody at some point. But they fumbled 5 times in the first quarter and lost 3 of them. And I remember saying to my coworker, I was like, I've covered high school games where they had a better handle of ball security than this. Like, this is pathetic for an NFL team to put the ball on the carpet 5 times in one quarter. So to go from that to what they eventually did, it was night and day. It was pretty incredible to watch.
All right, watch with Dak and his poise and his composure. They score 30 points in the second half, and time again, he had to make a play. Explain to our listeners how difficult what he did. What he accomplished yesterday, considering he had 2 undrafted tackles starting in front of him.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that, not only what Dak did, but and not to dog the Dallas defense. They had their moments as well, but didn't get the benefit of a turnover or a short field. Matt Ryan, like I just mentioned, the Cowboys fumbled 3 times. Matt Ryan started in Dallas territory 4 times yesterday. All of Dallas's touchdown drives were 74 yards or longer. So you're talking about Dak Prescott driving the field 5 different times for touchdowns without his starting tackles, down 20 points. It's the only time in the history of the NFL that a team has scored 39 points and not turned the ball over and still lost. So, I mean, Dak was working against literally historic odds. Obviously anybody that follows the NFL, the narrative, Dak is playing on the franchise tag. He's looking for a new deal. This was the type of thing he needs to do if he's going to prove he's worth $42 million a year. So for him to do it in week 2 of the season, his first come from behind win since the 2018 season, I don't think you can underestimate how big it was.
He is David Helman, Cowboys insider, DallasCowboys.com. He's joining us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and the Out of Bounds Show. Our guests join us on the Parish Brewing guest line. Was this a coming out party for CeeDee Lamb, the first-round pick out of Oklahoma?
It's his first 100-yard game, so I guess I have to say yes. But honestly, I think CeeDee Lamb's coming out party happened the day he got drafted. I know I'm talking in SEC country. Anybody that follows college football knows all about his game. And he had a nice night in week 1 as well. He caught 5 passes for 60 yards. But obviously going over 100 yards, with the talent on this offense, I think everybody knew he was going to be in for a monster rookie year, and it certainly looks like he's well on his way after 2 games.
Blake, you got a question for David Helman, Cowboys insider?
Yeah, David, Blake Scott here. The onside kick, we've talked about this already in the first part of the show. 99.9% win percentage for Atlanta when they're up 39-30 with 2:37 on the clock or whatever it was. Twofold. Talk about the decision to go for 2 and the play call when they missed it down 15, and then how that led to obviously the need to kick an onside kick, and kind of what went through your mind as that play unfolded.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation because there are analytics people who are way better at math than I am who will tell you that the Cowboys played it exactly the right way. The idea is that if you need to go for 2, you're better off getting it out of the way with more time on the clock so that if you don't get it, you have time to rebound. Whereas, if they take the clock all the way down to inside the final minute, go for 2 and miss it, then you're out of luck. You probably don't have a chance to win the game. So, meanwhile, for every person that says that, there's a million old school football people who don't think it makes sense. And honestly, I tend to agree more with them because I just think you're just creating more variables for yourself that are beyond your control. And then, obviously they decide to go for 2. If they get it, everybody loves the call. But they run a pitch to Zeke Elliott, which when you need 1 or 2 yards, I really hate the idea of giving the ball carrier the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Didn't love it. Obviously, it all worked out because of the onside kick, which was one of the more bizarre things I've ever seen. I equate it to, if you've ever watched baseball when somebody dribbles a foul ball dribbles a grounder down the foul line, a lot of times the first or third baseman will just kind of sit there and let it dribble with the hopes that it goes foul. And 99.9% of the time, that's what's going to happen. But if you've watched enough baseball, every now and then the ball dies in just the wrong spot and lets the base runner get on. And that's kind of what happened yesterday. I think the Falcons knew if they don't have to touch it inside of 10 yards, and it'll either die or Dallas will touch it and it'll be a penalty and they'll get the ball. But if they do touch it, it becomes live. So they were waiting in the hopes that it would die before 10 yards, and that didn't happen, and it allowed C.J. Goodwin to get on top of it. Just really, really bizarre. Like, I understand the logic of what the Falcons players were trying to do, but once you get to 8, 9, 9.5 yards, somebody just needs to fall on the thing and end the game.
Right. Oh, incredible. David Helman, Cowboys insider, DallasCowboys.com on the Out of Bounds Show. Dak and the Cowboys score 30 points in the second half, and they win 40-39. What about Dak's reaction? This is a guy, he knows starting off 0-2, even though, it's 12% shot to make the playoffs, David, but that's a little skewed now that we have another playoff spot open. But either way, you're going to play the best player, in the game this weekend at Seattle. So he definitely understood what it meant to come back. But what did you make of his reaction right after the game on the sideline?
Well, he was animated as hell, as he has every right to be. I mean, off the top of my head, this is easily a top 2 or 3 performance in Dak's career. And I mean, he's won a playoff game, so he's had bigger moments, but just in terms of what he did and how well he played. So he has every right to be pumped as hell. But at the same time, within 20 minutes of the game ending, he's back to being his usual collected self, which, yeah, I mean, and anybody listening to this, I know you get it, but you can't say enough about the guy's poise, and he never blinks. Like, and everybody says that, but it feels especially true in his case because you've just seen it so many times. Like, I don't have a problem believing that he really wasn't fazed by being in a 20-point hole. And I don't think even, it's hard to play quarterback in the NFL. All of them are good, but I don't think everybody has that quality of mental makeup as Dak Prescott has.
No. Would you explain you cover the Cowboys every day and Dak every day. Would you explain to our listeners what it's like to be under the spotlight as the starting QB for the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas day in, day out, David?
I mean, for my money, I think it is the most visible and most scrutinized job in American sports. The Cowboys play, if they play 16 games, 14 of them are in a national TV window. They played at noon during a bunch of other games yesterday. That is very rarely the case for Dak Prescott. And, if you follow the narrative at all, like I said at the beginning of this interview, he needed a game like this because he's on a one-year contract, and he's trying to convince the Cowboys that he's worth a big one, a 4 or 5 year contract that's going to pay him $42 million a year. And there's plenty of people in the Cowboys fan base that don't think he's worth it. Last year they went 8-8. They lost 6 games by 1 possession. Dak didn't have a game like this last year where he was able to lead his team back and win a close game. He's done it plenty of times in his career, but he didn't do it last year, and it helped cost the Cowboys a playoff spot. So for him to do it this early in the season and do it in such an impressive fashion, it's a reminder of what he's capable of and what he's done during his career because, like I said, for every Dak fan, there's many, many people who don't think he's worth that kind of deal. So it was big for him to step up and show what he's capable of.
He is David Helman, DallasCowboys.com. Dak and the Cowboys with a huge come-from-behind win yesterday over the Atlanta Falcons. So first of all, they could have signed him before now, and it wouldn't be the money that it is eventually going to be. Do you expect them to get this deal done at some point? And do you think every quarterback that signs resets the market, so it's not necessarily is Dak worth the $40 million because they could have done this at $32 or $33 million a while back, right?
Yeah, no, that's perfectly stated. It's been a long and drawn out process. And if you had told me a year and a half ago that Dak still wouldn't have a long-term deal, I'd be shocked. And yeah, it is the cost of doing business because, at one point in time, Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco was the highest paid quarterback in the league at $28 million. And here we are this offseason and Deshaun Watson resets it at $40. That's just kind of the nature of the business. But you look around and, everybody wants to compare Dak to Patrick Mahomes, which really isn't fair. There's only one of those, unfortunately. But you look around at the guys that are in Dak's pay range, Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, and the resumes are very comparable. And in most cases, they favor Dak Prescott based on what he's done over the course of his career. The Cowboys, and I think there's probably blame to go around on both sides. The Cowboys could have signed him at a lower number. But Dak Prescott is also very, very aware of the market and what he's capable of earning. They put some deals in front of him that would have paid him $32, $35 million a year. And Dak and his agent basically said, no, we feel comfortable playing this thing out, and I think I'm going to make more money in the long run. And based on what he did yesterday, if he does that a handful more times this season, he's probably going to be right. So, I think a deal's going to get done at some point. I think the Cowboys would be silly to let him walk, in favor of, if you can get Trevor Lawrence, maybe, but that seems highly unlikely unless you've got the number 1 overall pick. So I think they'd be better off signing him, and I think it's going to be a big number when they finally do, whenever that is.
David Helman on the Out of Bounds Show, Cowboys Insider. He joins us on the Parish Brewing guest line. David, Todd France, Dak Prescott's agent, parted ways with CAA about a month or two ago. What have you heard? Is he still Dak's agent, or did Dak stay with CAA?
He's still Dak's agent. Yes, Todd France did leave CAA, but he still represents Dak. The big thing for Dak is, NFL rules stipulate when you've been franchise tagged, after that deadline passes, which was on July 15th, he can't negotiate anymore. It's a measure that's supposed to keep good faith between the two sides, so that you're not, resetting the negotiation after every week. Because obviously, after a day like yesterday, Dak could sit down on the table and say, I want $50 million. But he could throw 3 interceptions next week, and the Cowboys would say, there's no way we're doing that. We want you for even less. So the negotiation is completely tabled until this season is over. They can't, they could put a deal in front of Dak tomorrow, and he wouldn't be able to sign it per NFL rules. So Todd France is still his guy, but nothing can get done until January at the earliest. So it'll be interesting to see what the full body of work looks like after this season.
Blake?
Yeah, David, Jason Garrett's been a hotly debated topic, obviously, on this show for years. And the only true holdover is Kellen Moore. We have had many a discussion, both on and off air, about whether or not Mike McCarthy's making a good decision allowing Kellen Moore to remain the play caller. I know Dak loves him. There's something to be said about continuity, and there's something to be said about Dak winning 40-plus games, and Kellen Moore's been the OC for a season and now 2 games of that. But what do you make of that decision by Mike McCarthy, and is it a good one so far, 2 games through the season?
There's a lot of – Kellen Moore's offense is under a lot of scrutiny, and I do have to admit it doesn't look as new and different as maybe I was hoping for.
Agree.
Blake, you said you're a Cowboy fan. People love to go back to the first 3 weeks of last season. The Cowboys looked a lot different in a good way. A lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of moving parts that made it even, they put even more stress on the defense. We really haven't seen that. At the same time, I'm not upset about it. They were number 1 in the league in offense last year. They were number 3 in the league in third down conversion rate. They had a good offense. And honestly, through 2 weeks, the early returns are pretty good. Even against the Rams in week 1 when they only scored 17 points, the offense did not have a terrible day. So I'm still kind of feeling this thing out because it's very obvious Mike McCarthy has put some fingerprints on this offense. I'll be, maybe after week 4 or week 5 when we've got a clearer picture, I'll have a better opinion. But for the time being, I feel fine with it. Like I said, I think they've looked pretty damn good through 2 weeks, even with some hiccups.
David Helman, DallasCowboys.com on the Parish Brewing guest line. All right, David, we've got to shift gears here. You're an LSU grad. LSU hosting Mississippi State this weekend. 2:30 CBS. What are your expectations for your LSU Tigers this year?
Man, it's funny because you spend all last season saying if we win the national title, I don't care what happens, and the world is putting that to the test. I've made that joke a million times, But it's funny because I'm just happy they're playing games, but I know what kind of fan I am, and the first time LSU punts against State on Saturday, I'm gonna be pissed off. I just know it. So I hope if they can win 7 or 8 games after losing all the talent they lost last year, that would be nice. But I'm trying not to get my expectations too high, but it would certainly be nice to start the new post Joe Burrow era off with a win, but we'll see what happens.
Man, Joe played his tail off Thursday night. With not a lot around him. David.
It's funny. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much y'all know about that, but I mean, I'm very familiar with Dak and State, obviously from being an LSU fan. But I went to Starkville with Dak to shoot a documentary a few years ago. I know all about how y'all feel about him down there. I get it. And I always thought it was interesting because LSU's never had a player like that, really. You know, we've never had a guy that was on that level. We've had some great teams, but never that many, like, individually amazing players. And now I know exactly how y'all feel because, you know, obviously I'm busy during football season, but if I can sneak time in to watch the Bengals, you would think I'm a Bengals fan the way I lose my mind over every Joe Burrow play. So, the way State people feel about the Cowboys, I'm kind of experiencing that with the Bengals right now for sure.
Absolutely. Well, hey, David, thanks so much for getting up early today. David Helman, DallasCowboys.com, talking Dak and the Cowboys with the monster win yesterday over the Atlanta Falcons. David, we appreciate it. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, anytime, y'all. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. David Helman, DallasCowboys.com, LSU grad, on the Parish Brewing guest line. You're listening to Out of Bounds on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. How about that? I didn't know that he had traveled to Starkville with Dak.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
And that's pretty cool. But he understands the way that the Hail State fan base loves and cheers for Dak even now as a Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah. I mean, like he said, you can kind of say the same thing about Alabama pre-Tua. You know, all their best players had been running backs. For LSU, it was the same thing.
No
question.
It
was running back, or maybe like a Tyrann Mathieu, a Patrick Peterson.
Those two teams have had dominating units.
Yeah.
Whereas Mississippi State and Ole Miss don't always have that. But they really had never had this type of level. Dak Prescott, Eli Manning, where you fall in love with the kid. He's there for multiple years.
Yeah.
Starts a ton of ball games and wins really big games. A lot of times not quite by himself, but having to make – like at Bama and LSU, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, but Burrow, because of what it was in terms of on-the-field offensive production, it was so unique to LSU. It obviously even, it makes it so much more special.
Yeah.
Like if Will Rogers comes out and has a 4-year career where he throws some ridiculous number like 20,000 yards in 4 years, even if he doesn't have the total team success that a Dak Prescott, or he's not the quote-unquote NFL caliber talent that Dak Prescott is, doing something like that in a brand-new offensive scheme at a school that's never done it that way is always going to make you an impactful player.
Sure.
Obviously, Joe Burrow won a national title. That puts it on a whole nother level.
Yeah. That was fun, man.
It was a good interview.
Well, you did a good job booking that.
Hellman's great follow on Twitter, at HellmanDC on Twitter. He's so good.
At HellmanDC.
He's a fanboy when it comes to Joe Burrow. Like he said, it's so funny to watch. He's been in pros for like 8 years covering these guys, and now that Burrow's there, it's like he's a fan again. It's so funny.
Well, I'm a fan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, the Out of Bounds show is powered by Eye Care Professionals. Dr. Kurt Jeffries and the crew on Lakeland Drive. Blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery. Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kurt Jeffries. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The SEC Insider Hit this morning was brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent in any of the 82 counties in Mississippi. Brad Edwards with ESPN at 9:30. We'll continue to recap the weekend coming up next.